So we've looked at the basic how-tos for major and minor scales, how they fit together, and how to use the scale formula to get different keys.
Let's do a quick recap.
These formula are what make up the sound of a major scale. In the key of C major and A minor respectively, you will get no sharps and flats because the relationship of the notes to each other is these scale tones. So from C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, E to F is a half step, and so on. This gives you the major scale notes in the key of C as expressed below. And it's relative minor.
Great, but last I checked, we don't always play in one key. Now I remember in the scale episode we stopped there and we're like, oh, let's show some other scales because we're guitar dudes and we want to show more playing clips.
Well, we've matured, okay? In our output of like 2 videos a year, we've learned a lot. What we've learned is we should probably stick to what we know best instead of giving you a whole ton of different scales. Let's get into that.
And what do we know? Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole.
We know that, but we know it darn well. Now, we need to discuss getting away from our favorite key of C and begin looking at the keys that start with other letters. And keys that even have letters with symbols next to them.
Nah, it's not that scary. It's actually pretty easy. You just need to focus on 2 rules.
The relationship of the notes in C major is their natural relationship. That means there's no sharps and no flats. So if something happens to the note, we have to show it in some fashion. Happens to the note. How cryptic. That brings us to our second point.
The scale formula is what we need to preserve, not the note. The note itself is like a signpost on the road. It is not the road itself. The scale formula takes us to where we want to go. If a signpost is out of place, a note, we need to move it.
So it sounds easy enough. Let's do an example and find out.
Okay, so here's a randomly chosen note. G. Okay, those of you in the know that I didn't just randomly choose a note. But play along so we can get to the big game later.
We start with the 7 distinct notes we would need for a major scale in G. They would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Simple enough, right? Off to a good start, but we aren't stopping there. We need to dive in there and see what the relationship of the notes are to each other. But before we do that, let's burn something in the old brain. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That is what we are looking for. If we don't find it, we got problems. So let's apply it to the formula below. E to F sharp a whole step? It sure is. That brings us to an interesting spot. We've pushed the F away from the E with a sharp, creating a bigger distance between the E and F than that occurs naturally. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed, so on the other side of the F sharp, we have moved closer to a stagnant G. Originally a whole step was between F and G, but now a half step is between F sharp and G. Does that create what we need? In this case, absolutely. The last interval we needed in the major scale is a half step. Officially, we have created the key of G by adhering to the scale formula. Let's check our work. We stated in the previous scale video that the 6th scale degree is the relative minor of the major scale. In this case, it would be the key of E minor, Metallica's favorite key. Since we know leaving these notes untouched would give us A minor, let's check to see if applying an F sharp will give us a scale formula for an E minor scale. Between E and F sharp is a whole step. Wait, it already seems like we are off to a strong start. Why is that? Because remember, the distance relationships for major and minor scales are the same because they are simply the same formula with different starting points. So anything we applied to the scale on the major side will be valid for the minor side and vice versa. Real quick, E to F sharp, yes. F sharp to G, yes. G to A, yes. A to B, yes. B to C, yes. C to D, yes. D back to E, yes.
All right, we did it. We made G major / E minor by adhering to our scale formula.
Now that was a great example of how to push notes into what we need, but what if we need to pull?
Well, why don't we go to our example of F major? Those of you in the know, feel free to laugh at our hamminess.
Preserve the scale, not the notes. Well, it looks like we gotta bend some notes to our indomitable wills again. F to G whole step? Yes. G to A whole step? Yes. A to B half step? Why, no. No, it is not. Curses! I hate it when examples fall flat on their face. Perhaps the pun was intended. In order to solve this problem, we need to somehow pull the note closer to its predecessor. In order to do that, we can flat the note, creating a half step by pulling that note closer. Like the sharp, if you pull the note towards one side, it'll create a larger interval on the opposite side. Neither created nor destroyed, remember? Let's check it out now. F to G a whole step? Yes. G to A whole step? Yes. A to B flat a half step? Yes. B flat to C a whole step? Feels weird, but yeah, it sure is. C to D a whole step? Yes. D to E a whole step? Yes. E to F a half step? It sure is. As you might expect, we are going to check our work with the 6 scale degrees minor scale formula, which we already know is totally going to work. But let's do it for posterity. Here's what we hope will be a D minor scale. D to E a whole step? Yes. E to F a half step? Yes. F to G a whole step? Yes. G to A a whole step? Yes. A to B flat a half step? Yes. B flat to C a whole step? Feels weird again, but yeah, it sure is. C to D a whole step? Yes. And that's how we get D minor, the saddest key.
As you can see, we were a little cheap when choosing keys. I mean, we chose examples that would give us either one sharp or one flat.
In our defense, we didn't want to overwhelm you at first, but can this be done with any key?
Absolutely. We're going to do some animations that show you a little bit later, but let's set up some ground rules for choosing our keys.
You either sharp or flat for diatonic major or minor scales, not both. It will always work out naturally that you will only have sharps or only have flats in a natural major or minor scale.
Double sharps and double flats mean we are entering theoretical key territory. That means if we come across a key that has those, we can also use a key enharmonically that doesn't have double anything. Just remember, notation, keys, all this stuff is meant to make things easier, not harder.
Like always, our goal is a reductive analysis, so we don't have to always go whole, half, whole, half all the time when working in different keys. If we come up with a system, we can adhere to that system to come up with the different keys.
So it looks like we have some scale work to burn, brother. I'll take half, you take half. We got 7 natural notes, 7 sharp notes, and 7 flatted notes to prove. Just major, since we know minor is going to yield the same results at the 6 scale degree. This isn't going to be fun, but there is a reason behind the madness. If we can see what we are working with, we can draw some conclusions about our results. Let's get the raw data out there, and then we can interpret that data.
Oh man, you guys are lucky we did that as a time lapse because it was not a short process. So what can we do? Let's throw away anything that had a double sharp or a double flat, since we previously established those are not going to help us.
Secondly, let's get organized. Since C major is the only key that has all natural notes, let's put it at the top.
Next, let's put sharps on one side, flats on the other.
Getting better, but I need to wrap my head around those numbers. Let's have 7 sharp keys on one side and 7 flat keys on the other.
What the? Oh my god.
Prepare yourself!
The scale.
Cut. Action.
What did you think though? You think
It's like the harder you try, the more aggressive you get. In our defense, we don't want
on the other? Yeah.
So the circle, this is